we're going to get really technological so I can use my hands to talk. I've got a lav mic. So thank you guys so much for being here. I thank Councilwoman Patton for hosting us tonight. And we're trying to finish our sweep of all of the new. I'm a new face, and we've got new faces on council. Councilman Bear, we had town hall last month, and now we're over here in District 6. So excited to be here and excited for the good turnout. Same as you, just kicking back a little bit. All right, is that better? Okay, we'll work with it. All right, so before you know what, hand me that. All right, everybody hear me better now? Okay. Check. No. Check.
All right, third time's a charm. Mic number 3. See that one?
All right. No, there we go. All right, good. Well, we hate to burn 5 minutes of our time working on the microphone. Sorry about that. So thank you guys so much for being here. Again, thank you to Councilwoman Patton for hosting. And what I'd like to do is give an opportunity for all of our awesome directors and administrators to introduce themselves, let you know who they are, put a name to the face. If you, I know a lot of you have interacted with one or multiple people up here before, but just wanted to, as we go around the community, make sure that when you see us out in the community, you recognize us and know who's working hard to make this an awesome place to live. So I'll do that. Before I do that, I want to recognize your county commissioner, Robert Bender, in the back there. Thank you for being here. And just a warning, if you have something positive about the district, thank you. And if it's negative about the district, you talk to your county commissioner. So that's why we're glad you're here. So, no, I'm just kidding. All right. Why don't you want to just start here and go that way?
Absolutely. Good evening, David Forte, one of the 2 deputy city administrators. I work alongside 4 departments, the Sanitation and Fleet Management Department, Public Works Facilities Department, Development Services Department, and our Housing Department. And I will pass it on to Chief Randall.
Good evening, Eric Randall. Sorry. Good evening, Eric Randall, the police chief here for the City of Pensacola. Glad to be here. I'm glad to meet you all tonight.
Hello, good evening. I'm Jenny Craner. I serve as your fire chief.
Good evening, Amy Tootle, Public Works and Facilities Director.
Hi, Erica Grant-Cagnolo, Economic Development and Neighborhood Services Director.
Evening, Clark Merritt, your report director. I'm Fred Crenshaw, sanitation director.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Miller. I am the other Deputy City Administrator along with Deputy City Administrator Forte. Under my side of the city, I have the airport, port, the natural gas utility, Pensacola Energy, parking management, and parks and recreation.
Good evening. My name is Adrian Stills. I'm your Parks and Recreation Director for City of Pensacola.
Hi, I'm Sherry Morris. I'm your Development Services Department Director for the city. My department is comprised of the Planning and Zoning Division, the Inspections Division, and the Community Redevelopment Agency.
Good evening. I'm Marcy Whitaker, the City of Pensacola Housing Director.
Lisa Dees, your Parking Management Director.
All right, before I hand it off to Councilwoman Patton, I don't know. Am I in the hot seat of non-working microphone? We've gotten a couple speaker forms. If you would like to speak, and ask a question, make sure you scramble over there and get those to us. Dominique, right there, can help you get one of those filled out. So while we hand it to Councilwoman Patton, we'll get our microphone working. Thanks.
So I'm going to try with this
Yeah.
microphone, since the other one doesn't seem to be working in
sounds
this
good.
area. Is this okay? Am I getting feedback? You're all right? Okay, great. So I guess my first town hall, I'm excited that all of you are here, and look forward to this evening and hearing from you about your concerns and what's going, hopefully a lot about what's going great at the city. And I just want to say first, thank you. I'm humbled and honored to be your representative, and I look forward to the next 3 years and 7 months to work on things for District 6. I will say that, it's been almost 5 months since the election, and a lot of people ask me, how are things going? And I think, the real answer is it's been a lot like drinking from a fire hose. A lot of, things to learn, city operations, council responsibilities. But I will say, and I want to say this publicly here, the city staff has been absolutely amazing in helping me get up to speed as quickly as I have been able to, and really learn about the operations of the city and help me, help you on the issues that you're concerned about. So that's really been great. I would also say that since the election, I've heard from a lot of you on the issues. I talked to a lot of you during the campaign, so I see a lot of familiar faces out in the audience. And I've heard from many of you individually, and I want to thank the city staff again and the mayor for working with me on those issues. And my door is always open. If you have anything that you want to discuss or you have any concerns, please feel free to let me know about those concerns. And then lastly, I'd like to say that when I became elected and realized, I have these responsibilities, how am I going to communicate with all of my constituents? Because I think that's the most important job of a city council representative. And I went to our city council executive and asked about having some additional support for social media and just communications in general. And I'm happy to share with you tonight that it looks like we will be hiring an intern over the summer to help us. Hopefully it'll lead to a permanent position to be able to help with more social media presence, more upgraded website connectivity, and just otherwise communicate. So you'll be hearing more about that in the future, but I'm really looking forward to being able to do a better job at that. So those are my remarks. Really, I think it's more important that we hear from all of you. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mayor, and you can get to the questions.
All right. Oh, look at that. All right. We're good. Yeah, thank you. I think that was well put. We're all in a learning process, and I think it's not just limited to the newly elected, like myself and Councilwoman Patton. Obviously, we have staff of different levels of time here, from a long, long time to just as new as we are. And I think it's an adaptation for everybody, how things are going to operate, what the relationship is between administration and council. And so, I know certainly one thing Councilwoman Patton and I share is we're extremely passionate, and we don't like to let things get in our way of making this community what we want it to be. So that's been very encouraging, and being able to work alongside, as we know, a very, very important district, not only for all the households, everyone who lives in District 6, but we know it really is the economic driver, of course, as well, a big part of that in downtown. So happy to take some of your questions. We've got a few now. We also, again, if we don't end up having enough to fill all the time, we do have plenty of updates that we can give you, certainly from the mayor's office and administration all the way to every department you see here. So happy to do that. I'll start with Susan Ford. Susan Ford here. Come on up.
Okay, let's have some microphones in here.
There. That one should be good.
I don't know. I'm terrible at this, so I wrote it down. Sorry. Am I good? So I'm representing, I'm here as a representative of the Old East Hill Preservation District. A lot of us are over here, this faction back here behind me. I know that they have a lot of concerns as well, but I tried to kind of narrow it down into a few that haven't been touched on quite so much. But we on the board fielded many questions, complaints, and concerns from residents. Speeding, not heeding traffic rules such as one-way streets, parking violations, and potential damage to property In one case, garbage cans were moved by a vehicle to make room for parking are common issues. Where the streets in question are public and no parking is guaranteed. But what concerns me is that it feels when neighbors have legitimate complaints, they turn to us instead of 311 or the non-emergency number out of fear of being the dreaded Karen or bullied by people that don't know the full story of what's happening. Or worse, they remain completely quiet. This seems like a terrible way to live in your own neighborhood. I feel confident most welcome change and growth, but are now reluctant to speak out on a legit violation. What should our response be to these growing pains? The deal with it or move response just doesn't seem fair or realistic to residents that have invested time, money, and built the relationships that have grown such a desirable community. And that leads to my second topic, which is more personal, but it does involve our district as a whole. I grew up south of Atlanta. I moved to Austin in 1990 and then to Nashville in 2004. I've been here going on 4 years now, and I love Pensacola more than all three of those places combined. That's saying a lot. In those cities, I witnessed firsthand the boom that Pensacola is poised for. I realize we're not on that scale, but I urge you to develop sagely. Grow and nurture our history, natural resources, waterways, residents, diverse culture, and artists of all mediums, not just another concrete skyline. Pensacola was first after all, and we should be showing other cities how it's done, not following their lead. I know y'all have been Airbnb'd to death, and I know that's a hot topic, but I just want to speak on behalf of our residents that are going through a lot of that growth and turmoil right now. And for the most part, I think everybody's happy, and it's a good thing. But there's a lot of strife and struggle. And just want to know how to address it.
Go ahead.
So I've heard some of these concerns, of course, from your neighborhood, which is a great, what I call small but mighty neighborhood.
You did, yeah.
I mean that. I mean, a lot of really caring, passionate people live in Old East Hill. And so I do understand that as it grows, there will be issues. And I think it's up to all of us to discuss those issues and see what we can do to help that with that balance. I mean, it's exciting when places like Lily Hall come to your area. You have restaurants, you have, this neat revitalization of a building that needed to be preserved, but it creates parking issues. So how do we, kind of work through all of that? Right. And I know we worked some issues on LaRua Street, put up some no parking on one side of the street signs. So I think it's really sort of has to be, my view is, and obviously these are city decisions, but it needs to be incrementally, sort of dealt with as these issues arise, and we need to see what we can do to try to strike that balance. But at the end of the day, I think those kinds of neighborhood, vibrant, businesses are good for our city, and so it's really it's trying to strike that balance.
Right. So
I think, I'm more than willing to be that conduit and work with the neighborhood and with the city to try to see what we can do to address whatever issues you guys are having in that regard.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and to add to that, of course, like anything, progress and change causes anxiety, whether it's in the workplace or it's in the neighborhood, right? And so I do want you to know, people ask me a lot about that, saying, hey, we really want to grow, or here you talk about wanting to grow Pensacola, and what about the management? Well, I would say really two things. I would say especially on the facility side, we're trying to maintain, of course, the things that we have. But I want you to know through all the processes of anything that comes through, whether that's zoning and permitting and those conversations of what's allowed and not allowed, there is a lot of thought that goes into. It doesn't mean it's always a solution that 100% of people will enjoy, but certainly there's so much thought that goes into really mainly with this staff up here, or these directors and their staff, and to try to be as mindful as we can about everything and everyone involved. But to your first question, what I would tell the people, you said, what would you tell people that see a violation? I'd say call it in. I mean, absolutely, because what makes it difficult to help govern fairly and efficiently is when it's in a generality. So they'll say, hey, this is happening all the time. Well, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, and certainly would never, take someone at their word when they say it's happening all the time. But there's not a lot what can we do with that information? So, I would say, look, if it's something that, like you said, if this is a violation or something like that, the best thing to do is call it in. I mean, and let us know. And so, and of course we do the best we can to make sure that, we get around there as well. As far as speeding goes, I know we've had preliminary conversations. There's been some, and this is really even before I started, about trying to figure out our way around two-weighing some of Davis and MLK, and that's not just in Old East Hill, but of course, moving all the way north, one-lane road, two-lane, one-way roads, people like to speed. And with Interstate 110 running parallel to that, we certainly have looked into that. Those are right now state roads, and we're trying to have conversations with FDOT about potentially, something that we'd even be willing to take on the maintenance of, which of course comes with a long-term cost, but hopefully that they would do that and hand that to us in a new condition at least, so we're not being handed a road that isn't in good condition that we would now have to repurpose. But that's certainly philosophically something I support, and you would think about, and at least getting to Cervantes, and really slowing down, even if it remained one way south on Alkanese 2-lane, you don't have the runway that goes all the way north, really outside the city limits. So again, we try to be mindful of those things. There is some complexity to it because of the state road versus local road thing, but those are things in the long term that we're looking at as well that we think would be good for traffic calming as well. And this is in any district. Another thing I think it's important to point out is, a lot of times we get calls about speed bumps, and they say, hey, man, it'd be great if we had a speed bump on a street. But more times than you would probably know out there, we get calls right after we put the speed bump and say, man, that speed bump's loud. And it's right outside my bedroom window, and that's something I wouldn't have known until I was in this position. So, if there was the perfect solution for some of those speeding things, and I'm really talking more on, residential streets where we see those, maybe some of you folks live where there's a speed bump, but we look for the best possible solution that we can, and so we are mindful of some of those things, and we do know that those 2-lane are, definitely people are driving fast, and we're going to look at every option we can to attack that. I don't know if anybody else has anything else to. I don't know. Yeah.
In reference to MLK, we've been doing some things from a law enforcement perspective, putting out different speed trailers. And like the mayor said, if you have a complaint or something, please call it in, because most of us in the city are really data-driven. So we look at data all the time, and we use data to be able to pinpoint a deployment of resources and personnel and things of that nature. So yes, please call it in so we can harness that data and be able to use it in the most effective way to deploy resources.
Is it better if they go through 311 or call the non-emergency line? What's the best?
So if it's a law enforcement issue, you can call it in through our non-emergency line. If it's something parking or something like that, not urgent, I mean, you can use 311 because they will forward it to us as well. We're getting ready to get training on 311 so those things can be immediately forwarded to a certain section of the police department. So if it is a situation that comes into 311 that needs to be immediately addressed, our dispatch will be able to send officers out there immediately. But if it's law enforcement related, whether it's emergency, non-emergency, just call the non-emergency number, or 911 if it's a true emergency.
Okay.
But we love data.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Looks like, is it Jim Steele?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. My wife and I have been spending the last year and a half or so intermittently liked it so much we decided to move here in September. Purchased a property on Davis, and sorry to be redundant, but actually the biggest issue for me right now is the one-way violations that I see. I was almost run over a couple of times in the last month, and am now mindful of looking both ways before I step on the curb. I don't know what the solution is. There probably are some fairly simple solutions with signage, maybe even a speed limit sign other than the one just coming off of right. There are no speed limit signs after that first one to make people mindful of their speed, and maybe some signage to say wrong way or something to ameliorate the issue before you go through the probably extensive effort to decide what to do with two ways or other traffic patterns in the area. So I'm just asking if there's something that the city can do to assist us in remaining a little bit more safe. We really love it here. On the positive side, being part of the community is really outstanding. We moved from Maryland, and I can't tell you how much happier we are here than we were there. So thank you for all the things that you do. Thank you for creating the community that we now live in, and please help us be safe. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you, and thanks. We're glad to have you. I'll just because we talked about Davis a couple times, I'll pass it to David or Amy, and they can kind of talk about where we are in terms of the two-way situation. Now, I don't want to tell you that's coming tomorrow. It comes down to the classic number one issue, which is funding, to get those roads up to. Basically, we want to be handed the keys from the state if we were going to go that direction, make sure that it's a road that's ready to have some lifespan, not just ask for those roads now and then be in a predicament that we just took over an aging state road that we now have to fix on our own. So we're trying to work through that. We actually, David and I were just in Chipley with FDOT, and what was it, last week, and this conversation came up about these roads. But the nice part is philosophically we're kind of in agreement, I would say, is that it's safe to say, between the city and FDOT that we do agree that those two roads being two-lane, especially on the north side of Cervantes, isn't necessarily a big need for us anymore in our community. And there is nothing, and totally get you on the signs, speed bumps. What I'll tell you is there's nothing that's more impactful to slowing down traffic than the width of lanes and the ability to be going two-way with two lanes versus one-way. We can put up as many signs as you want, and the example I always like to illustrate with everybody is my joke is always, when's the last time you were on Cervantes getting off the interstate there and you saw someone actually going 35 miles an hour? Don't listen, Chief Randall, don't listen to this. I might have sped a couple times, but it's because they're 12-foot wide lanes that are the same width as the interstate, so it tells your brain that this is more than comfortable to drive a faster speed. So as we design roads, and we've got an awesome team, Caitlin, Amy, certainly, we all are in lockstep about this as we continue to grow and expand in our city. But, the counter example I always use is when you're going northbound on 9th Avenue with McDonald's on your left and Krispy Kreme on your right, and that turn lane kind of got jammed in there, several years ago. Well, that goes to, I'm going to say 9 feet. I'm making that up. It's tight. And 9.5 feet. Well, what do? You slow down because you don't get your mirror taken off. And so there's something truly, data shows it, there's something behavioral about when we're both going one way with two lanes, we're just more comfortable driving faster. So if you remember the old days of Palafox, South Palafox was 2 lanes, one way. And imagine if we were to ever go back to that now, considering all the people that are down there and restaurants, and imagine if we just had 2 lanes all going south, and moving at a fast rate of speed. So that is a project that I don't want to tell you is going to happen tomorrow, but we have gotten to the first stage. I'll let David expand on it, but we've gotten to the first stage, which we're in agreement both at the local level and at the state level that would be a necessary change and something that we're both on board with.
I think you can add to the end of Mayor's name as a
professional traffic operations engineer at this point.
Amateur.
It's impressive how much he's picked up in the past just 5 months. Yeah, as the mayor said, we've had a lot of really great conversations with that DOT as recently as last week. It's been a desire for the city as well as obviously the community to move those one-way pairs to two-way, 2 lanes. It is actually a listed project on a regional transportation plan, and we're working everything we can diligently with our partners at the other surrounding agencies to move that project up as quickly as possible. But there is complexity between DOT roads, as the mayor said, state roads and local roads. We don't maintain any of the state right-of-way. So Davis Highway is a state facility, so if we are to, Mr. Steele, if we are to look to add additional striping or signage along that corridor, it would have to just be work between us through the state of Florida, which we've done all the time. We do it all the time, but it's a little bit different when it's a local road. We can just kind of go out there, Ms. Tootle and her team can go out there and make all the changes as we need, but when it's a state road, we have to go through their permitting process, which takes a little bit more time and complexities, but we'll be glad to look into if there's some voids in the area. We can work with them. They have the state has what they call a traffic safety office. They actually have an individual, his name is Mike Lewis, that is dedicated solely to Escambia and Santa Rosa County, and we work with him very closely, if not on a weekly basis, on specific situations that we see. And oftentimes it comes from Mr. Steele telling us about something, because we can't be on every road in the entire city all the time. So it takes a citizen, to go back to what you were saying, Ms. Ford, it takes a citizen to let us know what you're feeling and experiencing out there. We then take that, we pass it on either locally if we can handle it, or if it's the state handles it. So yes, I mean, that's definitely a part of it. We oftentimes just function as a conduit and try to get it across the finish line, but I don't know if Amy wants to expound any more about it. She does have a traffic division under her, so James Cook is a professional traffic operations engineer, and he oversees our traffic operations and traffic control and traffic safety division under our public works facilities department. So if you ever have any concerns about traffic, you can always reach out to either myself, obviously the mayor, myself, through 311, or Ms. Tootle, and we'll be glad to address it as soon as we can.
Yeah, so if you're around afterwards, grab one of us and let us know even more with more specificity somewhere in Davis where new signage or something like that. We're happy to take a look. Thanks. All right, B. Lynn Robertson.
Thank you for having meetings like this so that we can ask questions of you. Also, I attended the it was the Citizens Academy last year and thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope you'll continue that program as well. Very informative. But I wanted to talk about something that is personal to me. I live on a corner, and I have on both streets either a totally dead or a dying tree. And I've been trying for over 2 years to get the city to take them down. They're in the right-of-way. They're not my trees, they're your trees. And one of them, the dead one on 10th Avenue side, if it falls north, it'll take out my connections to the power company. If it falls south, it'll hit my car. If it falls west, it's going to crash into my house. And if it falls east, which is my best objective for it, it'll block the street. And I would please, it's been, I know it's on the list. It got on the list finally last year. The arborist, which I thank you for getting one. The city has needed one for a long time. He came out and told me that they were definitely now on the list. He had seen them, and they were on the list. But I don't know how much longer that tree's going to stand, and no matter which way it goes, it's going to cause damage. Can I please get it taken down? Also, there's one in front that has been dying ever since I moved in about 42 years ago, due to an infestation of, it's not holly, you know, the parasite for trees, mistletoe. And it is on its last leg, and it's also dropping very large limbs, and it supposedly is also on the list, but nothing ever happens. And I would really like to have that taken care of.
Okay, yeah, well, great. Look, you know, some people don't agree with me. I certainly agree with you, you know, about this issue. What it means is what I mentioned earlier, which is going back to maintenance. You know, there's a little controversy around, you know, my wanting us to get really back to square one. And what I mean is our list of 40 trees that we'd have 40 plus. Yeah. Well,
They're behind.
The existing.
They're 2 years behind in taking down trees.
Exactly. And so I felt personally, and I know there's a lot of folks that disagree with me, which is okay, but I felt personally that was a more pressing priority or need for the city, and it's a public safety concern. And that's why, before we're planting something, let's make sure that we're at a level playing field or as close as possible, because when I heard what the stat that you just gave when I started, that we're 2 years behind on cutting trees down, I felt like, hey, for one time, this is not something we're going to do every year. This is a one time, let's get caught up post-Sally, post-COVID, post all of those things, and let's get a 2-year backlog caught up before we start investing significant dollars into planting things. And I would rather, my conscience feels better going on a robust planting spree when I know that the ones that could be hurting someone or their property are taken care of. So we do have an update for you. I'll have David give you the latest, but we are moving pretty swiftly as far as that goes.
Okay.
Absolutely. If Mr. Stoltz told you they're on the list, they're probably 2 of the trees that are on the...
They're not on the list of dangerous trees. They are on the list of trees to be taken down after that.
Okay, well
they're on the list that is 2 years behind.
Okay, well then, I'll have a card. I'll hand it to you. I'll make sure we can get out and specifically see if those trees are on the list. We do have 30 trees that we just issued the purchase orders to.
I got the list here.
Okay,
yeah, it's not one of those 30.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Well then we'll be glad to look into for your knowledge. We do have 30 trees, and Miss Tootle actually has the list up on her screen. But all 30 of those trees over the next several weeks to month will be removed. We have 5 or 6 contractors over the 30 trees that will be addressing them. We'll be coming back in on the heels of that, actually planting additional new trees that actually will thrive in their actual state in that location, whether it's right away, whether it's tucked away in a park, wherever it may be. But I have a card. I'll be glad to hand it to you. And if you have the address afterwards, we can look and see and make sure.
I definitely have the address.
All right, fantastic.
I've been there 42 years.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Go ahead. And I would just say that I heard, from many of you about issues with trees and right-of-ways and trees that needed to be taken down that have been on lists for a couple of years. And I'm thankful that the mayor and the city staff have decided to address that. And so hopefully through this process that you just described, we'll get rid of some of the most dangerous trees, and then we can continue to work on making sure we're funding the tree removal going forward, because I think it's a safety issue. It's important.
And for anyone out there or watching that did disagree with me, we also have another positive update, which ultimately is we are working on what I would say is our SOPs, our standard operating procedure for how we plant moving forward. And what I mean is not just what's the minimum amount of money it takes to put a tree in the ground, but what's the true cost. We got to water it for a year. We've got to monitor it. I would rather have, instead of planting 50 $1,000 trees, I'd rather plant 10 $5,000 trees that know that they're going to thrive. They're located and they give you shade on the sidewalk, not just in the middle of the park. So we're looking for the optimal places to put these trees where they get the maximum value for the pedestrian, for the resident. So we are kind of restacking the deck here with Chris Stoltz, who you mentioned, and our whole team, and we're basically coming up with a real plan of so you know that if we're spending tree planting trust fund money, it's going to something that's going to be here for the long term, not just planting a tree to necessarily plant a tree. We want to make sure that that it's a quality plan, that it's done well, it's executed well, and that's why, like you said, we're thankful to have Chris on staff, and nobody knows more about that than Chris does. So, all right, we've got Carolyn.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you so much to all of the city staffers for making the time, and for you, DC Mayor DC Reeves, for following through on your transition plan requests and your plan to do this, where we make sure that community is informed. I think that this is a great piece of showing exactly what's been happening. I know I haven't been able to be at all of your city hall meetings, but I've been watching them from home and been able to keep up on what's been happening. One of the pieces that I also just want to compliment the team on is some of the pieces that I've been seeing, some of the parts that the fire chief and the police chief have been giving the updates that we've been seeing that have been coming, some of the pieces from the parks in the pieces that different staff members have been giving as well, and I think that that's been very helpful to the community. I was recently at the ribbon cutting of one of the parks, which is showing some of the ADA improvements, and I think all of these pieces are part of what makes our city thrive and makes our communities better for each of us, and that's part of what my part of livability on the transition team was about. One thing I wanted to share tonight was that on Friday at the Center for Independent Living, we're going to be having an accessible opportunity for anybody who may be a person who has any type of mobility impairment. We will be having an event that is there for persons to learn how to use a hand cycle. So the Parks Department, we welcome you to come. We mentioned this when we were out, and I know that at least one city council member had planned to come. Of course, it's been publicly noticed because we also have to sunshine for our board to be there. So we welcome anybody to come who would like to be there, and we welcome all of you to be there as well. But we also want to make sure that people know where the public trails are that are accessible, and that's really an important piece. One of the other pieces that we want to make sure of is that people know where their city resources are, and that's an important piece to know. Something else that we also would like to just discuss is that as we're looking at pieces that go on with looking at improvements, is just to make sure that we think about what does it take to make that next improvement, that next step, to make it universally accessible. How do we get that couple more seconds at a crosswalk? How do we make that next step, that one step better? How do we get one more, little bit more of a ramp? How do we get one more step that's a little bit brighter? How do we get one more place that's a little bit quieter? How do we get a tree that has 1 more inch of clearance? How do we get, et cetera? Those kinds of things, and those are sometimes ways that we as the center can be part of that inclusion process. And so we'd like to just be able to offer our services again to everybody. And just one more thing for this community, just so that everybody knows, the Junior League of Pensacola Spark Committee is going to be using this community space on April 30th to have an open fair, and they're going to be the Spark Committee, which is 13 young persons who are juniors and seniors in high school in the community, are going to be running a fair here, and they're going to be doing some education pieces on things like diabetes, breast cancer, getting a job, some information about financial health and wealth, information about how do you do truth in education, truth in power, things like that. And so it's going to be a great opportunity, and that'll be here from 1 to 3. And so I just figured since you're here in this resource room, it was a great time to let your community know about what was coming. I don't have a flyer for that one, but I do have the flyer for the biking and information about the center if anybody would like that after your meeting. But thank you very much again for everything that all of you are doing, and it's great to see so many community members participating at each of your city forums. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Carolyn. If you didn't know, Carolyn was part of the mayoral transition team, did an awesome job for us. That's a big time commitment, and it's because of people that just care about the community. That the pay isn't real good on the mayoral transition team. It's you donating your time and heart and energy. So thank you for what you do in the community. Those are all the questions we had. I thought what we would do, when we hear from you guys, and as Chief Randall said, we're very data driven, is there isn't a poll that we took during the campaign, during the quality of life survey that UWF, the Mason-Dixon had put on, as well as the UWF Haas Center survey. What we know is Pensacolians' number one concern, of course, is public safety. So what I thought I'd do is allow Chief Randall to give you a quick update and Chief Craner to give you a quick update on things, even if it's not just necessarily in District 6, but just overall. But before that, we'll just as exciting as I'll let David give a graffiti bridge update, and that might be right under public safety in District 6 in terms of concern. So you may not like this update if you like seeing people on Facebook post about trucks getting stuck under the, but we're attempting to be the administration that puts it to a halt. And if the plan that we have in place, if this still doesn't stop trucks, then God help us. I don't know what else we can do other than this plan. So anyway, I'll let David or Amy, whoever wants to take it, kind of give an update of where we are.
Yeah, but actually, I'll defer to Ms. Tootle.
Sure. So a couple months ago, we went ahead and worked with DOT to make 17th Avenue a no-truck zone. That was a crucial step in us making this transition, because now it allows the law enforcement to then cite people who are driving these vehicles, these oversized trucks, down 17th Avenue. The intent was always then to go to the next phase, which is doing some sort of overhead structure that will warn and alert these larger trucks that if they do go down 17th Avenue before they hit the bridge, that it will sort of warn them, and they'll have a chance to veer off of 17th Avenue before they get to Graffiti Bridge. So right now we're going to be going to council on the 27th, asking them to reallocate some funding from our last 4 funds to be able to do the design and construction of some sort of overhead feature. And the overhead feature is going to be sort of a chimes or dangle, or something that will be hanging down from a mast arm that will then hit the vehicles, alert them that, hey, you are way surpassing the limit of the bridge, and you need to, turn around and get out before you get stuck under the bridge. So if we're lucky to get council to approve it on the 27th, then we can then start design and then construction.
So hopefully, as I said, if you're going to blow through the chimes and then into the bridge, I don't know what else we got for you. But somebody had asked me if we're going to be able to count how many strikes hit the chimes, and I don't know that we have the technology to do that. Anyway, trying to certainly get that done. It's an expense, but honestly, when you add up all the time that our police spend there, that the rail company has to spend when it strikes, we sometimes get a chuckle about it. But what I think about it is, even if it wasn't the brightest idea, the thousands of dollars of damage that does if you're renting a moving truck, all that. If you add all that up, I think it'll pay itself back maybe within the year, depending on how many strikes we're averaging right now. So that's one exciting thing. Another, to be determined on time, we are working. I don't know if you aren't aware. A couple of years ago, there was CSX had sold a rail line from basically where the old Amtrak station is, all the way to Jacksonville. So up Scenic, all that is a new owner. We have been working, Erica and I have been working with, you may have heard on the Amtrak situation, and we met with the COO, the owner of that rail, and they have been very amicable to anything that we've talked about, very open-minded, as the new owner of this rail. So one of the conversations we had is about 5 years ago, there was a plan, I would say further than a plan, is that safe to say? All the way to hiring a contractor to actually put the walkway kind of under the trestle close to the bayou, so you didn't have to bike or walk out into 17th Avenue to get under the bridge, which, I know from the 3 times I've lived in East Hill in my life, that kind of is your safe way down, is either 14th, or if you were going to go downtown or go down by the bridge. So 2017, I believe it was, the contractor was hired. Well, the CSX came along and said, all right, well, you can start, but we're going to charge you $10,000 a day to inspect it. So that meant you're just not going to do it. So what where flash forward to today, because of the new ownership of the rail, they have been nothing is set in stone, but just more to come. But they have been very open-minded about meeting with our staff, our engineers, about being much more amicable on that front to be able to. So when you think about if you were walking south or biking south on 17th Avenue heading towards the graffiti bridge, there's the boardwalk over there on the left where there's locks and all that there would actually be a formal, official walkway that would go underneath there and then back around. So you're not having to, for those few seconds, that probably feels like 5 minutes if you're walking under that bridge waiting for someone to come around that turn. So, that again, is not set in stone, but we have rekindled that conversation. And I think for East Hill and for District 6, that's a, pretty important artery to be able, from a bike standpoint, to be able to try to, so we are working pretty hard towards that.
So DC, on that subject of walking under the bridge and connectivity, I have heard from a couple of folks in the district about Wayside Park, and I know there's some good news there, so I thought maybe you could update everybody on that. Thank you.
I'll probably defer to David on that, or Amy, knowing where we are. Good news, kinda. This has been a long road with Wayside Park and the seawall since Hurricane Sally. We kind of one step forward, 2 steps back. We kind of were getting a little closer down the road with FEMA. And then now there's questions of whether it was a hurricane damage or whether it was a barge that actually hit it, and that we need to be talking to Skanska instead of FEMA. So, we've spent a lot of time, I can tell you that, a lot of time and energy trying to get figured out what we want to do at Wayside Park. But what I would tell you is the big picture for Wayside is that's something that I really have eyes on making sure that we get activated. I would say that space from ultimately the graffiti bridge all the way down to the fishing bridge is unactivated. I was the former board chair at Visit Pensacola, and if you don't know, that's where Visit Pensacola's office is down there. A 9 to 5 office is really the only Monday through Friday is the only activity we have down there. And we know if you want a vibrant park, if you want a vibrant boat launch, if you want a vibrant waterfront, you need human activity. And so, that is something that we are taking a look at. But in terms of the update of repairs and all that, I'll defer to the folks working on it.
I believe there was a gentleman wanting to speak real quickly to graffiti.
On 17, just past the trestle, those concrete pillars, what structure was that going to be? Do you know?
Concrete pillars. On the south side or north side?
The north side of
It was going to be a condominium many years ago.
Yeah, so somebody owned that?
Somebody did own it, but it's still owned by somebody individual.
So it's private property?
Well, if it's 9 feet, 11 inches tall, we'll just stick a thing out to the left on it and save ourselves $140,000. So I'm not sure. We'll take a look at that. You're saying they're still standing there now? I mean, I drive that every day. I'm trying to remember where I go north, come around graffiti going northbound to Cervantes. So,
yeah, it's just past the trestle.
Maybe I've gotten so used to it, I just hadn't paid attention. We'll take a look at that though.
As far as Wayside.
Yeah, as far as Wayside goes, and I'll probably pass it down to Ms. Tootle again, but we have been in constant communication with our partners at FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency, as well as the Florida DEM, the Florida Department of Emergency Management, in hopes to solidify the funds that we feel are owed to us to restore the Wayside seawall to its pre-Hurricane Sally condition. We cannot install anything above and beyond that with their funds. We have to bring it back to the condition it was prior to. But I know that I think we have another meeting with them this week or next. But it's probably best to pass it down to the person that has the more intimate details than I do. But we are actively communicating with our partners, and we're very hopeful that we'll be able to come to a resolution very soon to get that project moving. It's been 2.5 years since the Sally, so.
Sure. The mayor is exactly correct. We have been going back and forth with FEMA for the past couple of years. We just recently got a little bit more movement on this project. We had a series of questions that they were asking the city to respond to, and we just responded to this last round of questions. There were 30 plus questions, and we responded to them within the past couple of weeks, which was their deadline for us to give a response. So we're kind of in that holding pattern where they're going to be reviewing those, the answers, the responses to their questions, and then we'll see what the next step is. But in the meantime, they have asked us to have another meeting and just to kind of go over and maybe explain some of those responses so they understand that we're all on the same page in terms of what we have responded to. But at this point, it's just an ongoing situation. We, as David said, we're hopeful. We try to give them all the information that they request, and that's just the ongoing, continuation of Hurricane Sally, that she just keeps living on and giving back to us. So.
I'll also say that we actually have design plans in hand, so we're sitting on go. We're just waiting for the thumbs up from FEMA so we can proceed forward. So we're ready. I mean, you would think maybe we'll light a little fire under their bellies that we have a $500 million investment in the Pensacola Bay Bridge. It's about to fully come online in the next couple months, and you've got there's a couple $1 million seawall infrastructure that you would think that that would be something that they'd be a little more motivated to get across the finish line. But we are ready to do it as soon as we get the thumbs up, and yeah, we're ready.
All right, I promised that I don't like to make law enforcement wait too long when I told them to let them give an update. But I will say, just because we are in this mode in this administration to try to point out the value of living in the city, and so my segue to police and fire is crime continues to go down. Our response time for Pensacola Police Department is amazing. And we got awesome guys. I tell people all the time, it's usually in this room, if I wish every person in the city could watch the quarterly or annual awards and listen to what these police officers do and how incredible they are. I wish I could make all 57,000 of us at least watch 5 minutes of it. It really is impressive. And as far as fire goes, if you don't know, and you probably don't notice it because all our insurance keeps going up, but I can tell you it would go up higher if you didn't have an ISO 1 fire department in your city, which is the top 1% fire departments in the United States. So that actually makes your home insurance cost less than if you lived in another community. And so keeping up that standard of excellence is not only amazing for the most important reason, which is to keep you safe and be there when there's a fire, but also it has a positive financial impact for everybody who lives here. So I just always like to point out both of those things in the fact of that is part of the value of living in the city of Pensacola. So I'll let Chief Randall kind of give you a quick update, and then Chief Craner.
All right, well, good evening. First of all, I'd like to just give you an update. This week is National Public Safety Telecommunicator Appreciation Week. So all your 911 dispatchers, not only in the city of Pensacola, but Escambia County as a whole, are celebrating this week for the appreciation of the work they do. They are the gatekeepers to public safety, and I am so honored to be able to take this week to be able to celebrate them and all the work that they do to keep us safe, not only in public safety, but as a community as a whole. A couple things that, when we talk from a crime standpoint, that we need the community's help on. That are very, very simple, that really drives our crime numbers. Car burglaries. Car burglaries and theft are simple things that we can really do as a community to alleviate that, such as locking your car doors, not leaving valuables visible inside of your car, or leaving your keys in your car. I happened to be out in the community last week, and I ran into a community member, and we were talking about car thefts, car burglaries, and she admitted to me that she leaves her car keys in her car unlocked in the ignition. I was like, oh my gosh. She's like, nobody's going to steal my car. I said, yes, ma'am, they will. So we had a really good conversation after that, and I think we had some preventative measures that was taken from that. The next thing I'll talk about real briefly is something you may have heard or you will start hearing in the news that's very, very concerning. We all hear about opioids and opioid overdoses and fentanyl, but there is a new phenomenon that I've been asking a lot of questions about at the state level and with our DEA partners. There is a drug called xylazine. It is an animal tranquilizer. They also call it tranq. There have been several documentaries on the national news lately about how it is obliterating communities in the Midwest and the North and Northeast. So we're taking a good monitoring stance on it here in Northwest Florida. I asked some questions today about it, and I've got some people thinking in the state to kind of look at the numbers and see, are we having an increase in that? But this drug, it's mixed with fentanyl, it's mixed with other opioids, but xylazine is not reactive at all to Narcan, which most of us carry in public safety, that reverses the opioid overdose. So if someone is overdosing on xylazine, the Narcan that we carry will not work. But and the last thing I'll say is on May 18th, we will be having our annual Pensacola Police Department Memorial Service to memorialize and celebrate the service of all our members, and also to memorialize those who paid the ultimate sacrifice. That'll be at 8:30 in front of police headquarters at 711 North Haines Street. If you're free that day, please come out and enjoy the festivities and celebrate with us as we memorialize and celebrate Police Week that week. Thank you.
And I will say it's a beautiful ceremony. I went to there last year. It was quite moving.
Well, thank you. Like Chief Randall said, is this on?
You might have hit the button.
Yep.
Like Chief Randall said, if you call one of our 911 professionals, you have firefighters and EMTs coming. If you have a fire, if you're involved in a crash, if you have a medical emergency. But there are also other things that we do. We respond to water rescues. We have a fireboat. But more than any of those medical emergencies or fires or crashes, we like prevention. So we have a very robust fire marshal's office with prevention services and injury prevention services as well. We have certified car seat technicians that will help you learn. We're not going to install your car seat for you. We're going to teach you how to do it so that you can do it next time. We'll watch you do it and check that off. Safety for children is very important for us, and we actually have a documented case of an infant that was in a car crash that was installed by Pensacola firefighters and with a very good outcome. So that's a very important service that we offer. Also, we will help install your smoke alarms. You can connect with us at cityofpensacola.com, and we'll come out and install a free smoke alarm for you. We'll help you check them. We'll help you change batteries, whatever you might need related to your smoke alarms. Additionally, it is hurricane season coming, and as I said, with prevention, we want you to be prepared with your home and with your family and really be thinking about that. You can connect again at cityofpensacola.com and find some services and places you can go to reach out to prepare your home and prepare your family. And we are very concerned about generator safety as the season comes and people are using their generators, using them safely, and remembering anytime there's open burning, you need ventilation. And those are fire department updates. Thank you.
Yeah, come on up if that's all right.
Hi, my name's Geraldine Beauregard. Is that something you can present through the parent university? The car seats and...
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. We work with Sacred Heart and Healthy Start and some other local programs. Sorry.
We work with Healthy Start and through Sacred Heart when infants are released to their parents to put them in the cars, and we can work with any organization. I have a card I can give you.
Okay, awesome.
Yes,
Thank
ma'am.
you.
Thank you.
All right. A couple other updates you may have seen. First, if you've got any children, age, I believe it's 16 to 24, our deadline is coming up we have an awesome summer youth internship program. So we have the majority of our departments of the city are participating, and so they can put what their interest is. I know the mayor's office is going to have an intern, but pretty much most folks up here will have at least one intern, some several, and we're accepting applications for those summer internships. Those are paid internships too, as well. And so we had 25, I believe we had funding for 25, and then now in partnership with some of our workforce development partners, we believe that number could be up to 100. So that were paid. So great opportunity that they have led to. I know Commissioner Bender back there, they have a great program at the county that's led to full-time employment after those internships. And if nothing else, certainly if that's not, if someone in the younger part of that range is still, looking for helping build a resume, help build a college application, all of those kinds of things. I think that's an awesome opportunity. So it's on cityofpensacola.com through May 19th. And then I'll give one more update, and then I'm going to have Amy give an update on the Bayview Park and some of the erosion. I don't know if remediation is the right word, but I'm going to give her an update since we're sitting. It's right here around us. So the Bayfront Gregory welcome sign, it's been, I know, published in the media. We've made some announcements about it. That's going to be as you come over the flyover, if you were coming off the 3 Mile Bridge into Pensacola, right there in that kind of triangular median. If you've been here a while, you'll remember it was where the Five Flags Pavilion was. It was not really made for anybody to go there, but it was just kind of just a little bit of a presentation, I guess, into the city. With all the construction that had to come down, and so what we decided, which certainly adds complexity and adds time, but we thought it was worth it to flex the creative muscle of the people in our community and not just pick from 1 or 2 options, but to see what we had as a local community that could potentially be you think of the Pensacola Beach sign, or you think of this thing, one of those iconic moments for folks, for visitors, and for residents. So that is going on right now. There's actually a meeting, if you know any artists, and we've got specs, we've got up to what size it can be, all of those things. We do have that on our website. It's been on some of our City of Pensacola social media. If you know anyone interested, tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on the 2nd floor of City Hall, we're having basically just an information session. So we'll have everyone from folks in our engineering department, Sydney Robinson, who's helping run the contest portion of it. There's been questions about pay and time frame and size and all. Because it is a complex thing. There's a lot of folks that are involved in making this happen. And so we thought, instead of just sending an application for someone to read through, that we wanted folks to have some interaction and be able to listen and get some more detail. So that is tomorrow. The deadline for submissions is April 26th. So what we hope is people can go to that, and that still gives them a couple weeks to get something in and submitted. So with that, I'm going to pass it to Amy and give an update on some of the work we're doing at Bayview Park.
Well, it's kind of poetic here, since we're right here at Bayview, to give you that update. There is the erosion problem over here between the tennis courts and the bay. We have been, between the tennis courts and the parking lot, we have been undergoing engineering plans with a consultant to engineering design the fix for that erosion problem. We are coming to an end on those plan development. We should have 100% plans here in the next few weeks, and then the intent is then to get that project out to bid, get a contractor to bid on it. If we get a successful bid, which I'm very hopeful for, then we can get that project going and have that start construction somewhere in the summer time frame, and then hopefully have that complete by the fall.
So, it's interesting, we've talked about a number of different things right sort of in that area around Graffiti Bridge, Wayside Park, just talking about the contest for the new sign. Thinking about that area has been really not a place where any of us go or congregate. And if we get the new sign up, if Wayside Park is rehabilitated, not just the seawall, but the park itself, and activated, there's an effort to put the Chappie James Memorial right there. If we can get that connectivity through and under the bridge, it's just going to be a great, additional amenity for the area. And it's the entrance to our city, coming from the east. So I really think that it's exciting, everything that's going on there and putting it all together. I think it'll be something special. So thank you for all of that.
And then I know we don't have any more questions. Last thing, and since we'd be getting out of here early, I know feel free to come up, and you heard from all of our folks, and you know who's here. Make sure you come say hello and ask us leave some time for questions afterwards. Yeah, if you get one, come on.
Can you give us an update to the private-public venture at the port for the pickleball building?
Yeah, sure. Happy to take that unless you want to, Clark. Where's Clark? Okay. So we expect to. We don't have it finalized as it sits today, but we are at I would say at the last couple of I's and T's that we're dotting and crossing, and our expectation is to have a lease in front of City Council on the 27th. So some of the last couple things we were working on are really just details around parking. So we're down to those semantics, parking as well as what we wanted to ensure. And this is a conversation that had started previous to me taking over here, but what we wanted to have some additional controls in place to ensure that one of the reasons we're really excited about it is because it gives us more than just what rent is. It gives us the opportunity to have catalytic economic development, right? Regional tournaments, things like that could have such a huge positive impact on our community. So that, we're betting on that the same way that these folks are betting on that. Well, we wanted to ensure that there was at least some control in place that as the years go on and this progresses, that we continue to see that growth. And the example I give, which is certainly not their intent, is if they were to take the lease and then just put 1 or 2 pickleball courts in, and it's not large enough for it to have regional tournaments, well, that it wasn't the spirit of why we wanted it. We want it because it's got that, again, catalytic ability to bring, a couple weekends of people staying in hotels and, eating and drinking in downtown and taking the ferry over from the beach. All of those things would dwarf what we would get, for a building of that age and in that, in that state as it is. And so the improvements that will take place with the building, it going certainly on the property tax rolls as well. It's something we're really, really excited about. And as we know, it's the fastest growing sport in the United States. And so really, really excited to kind of, get that moving forward. There's really never been a hiccup in the last few months. It's just been, there's a lot to go through with when someone's, and I get it, multi-million-dollar investment to get that thing off the ground,
I believe just west of us, they do have facilities like you're talking about, which have 12, 15 courts that they're bringing in a lot of people from out of town, which puts people in hotels and along the same line, any possibility of in the future having pickleball courts here at Bayview. I know it's they're not cheap, but it is the fastest growing sport, and I don't know if there's any pickleball players in the audience, but you can't find a court now in town without waiting. It's good. I mean, it's a good thing to have, a good problem to have. I mean, it gets people out, especially the older group, out doing activities that they didn't do before. But the Y and the over at Roger Scott, I mean, and even at Santa Rosa in Gulf Breeze, you can't get a court. And I don't know if there's any future plans adding some in any other locations. Can you?
Yeah, well, what I'd say is we've had conversations, especially as it's time to replace some tennis courts, and I'm talking about not just here, but we got 94 parks, and adding one here and 2 there. Obviously, I would say from a ability to add them at scale. This is, of course, we've had our eggs in this basket of trying to get this thing up and going. And look, a lot of times there's conversations, about a convention center or a multi-use sports facility. I feel like this is a good move for the city strategically because typically when a city owns those, it is rare for those to run at a profit. If we can have a private owner who's willing to take on the operation, the financial risk, and it becomes an amenity that's, even if it's privately run, this kind of public-private partnership, I think is something that can move faster and really is more financially responsible for you guys as taxpayers, is to say, hey, let's add this amenity to our community and not necessarily have to be on the long-term financial hook to do it. And so I'm excited that they've come forward. So yeah, no plans at this point for the city. Certainly, out of respect for their investment, we want to make sure, we want to kind of see this through with having those courts at scale. But I don't think, once we get this buttoned up, I know that they're eager to move as well, that this isn't something that they're hoping to sit around on their hands on. So we see it all over the country, how fast the sport's growing, and certainly we want to, get in the game in that front. So.
Okay. I have one other concern that actually is a passion of my wife's, that we actually talked with Councilwoman Allison Patton the other night about it, but we see quite frequently a lot of not only homeowners but also landscapers and lawn maintenance people that are blowing all the debris out into the streets. And I know with our natural resources and the waterways here and next to where we are, we had one of the big vaults put in. The city put a big vault in to catch the debris. But just yesterday, we had somebody that was blowing it down into the drains, right next to our house. And we see it all over East Hill. I'm sure it happens all over the city. But as much money as we spend on trying to protect our waterways and the bayou, I think maybe it's an educational thing. Maybe we need to somehow educate the landscapers and the lawn maintenance businesses here. But you see it all the time, just blowing it out in the streets when it rains, it just goes right into the bayou.
Yeah.
And everything with it.
Yeah. Well, and I would say it sounds like you're talking about maybe some folks working on private property, but my first question was, if you see that happening on any of the city parks, or we have some folks in house, we contract some out, so certainly any issues, let us know. I hear you, and you're right. It probably is an education thing. I agree with you. It's obviously hard to keep.
They just don't know. But we actually, my wife didn't cost the person, but it approached the person about it that was doing it yesterday, and he said, "Well, it's just natural debris." That's the reason we put the vaults in is to prevent that from going into the bayou. But anyway,
yeah.
Yes, this exact issue has come up a couple weeks ago, and my stormwater division manager, he was out on another particular site trying to educate the homeowners about some of these activities, about blowing the lawn clippings and the leaves down into the drains. You can call code enforcement. Code enforcement come out, and you can also give us a call at Public Works, and we can be happy. But it has to be, as Mayor said, in terms of timeliness, as you see it happen, be able to make that call so we can get out there and kind of assess the situation and talk to the people that are doing these activities, because we do know that sometimes it's not always not always the homeowners, it is the contractors that are coming out and doing that. And we have actually had that conversation. I had that conversation about education and maybe doing some sort of public campaign just to educate the citizens about what they can and cannot do. So that is something that we have already been thinking about and trying to come up with some sort of.
Even if you have some type of handout that you can give to the public, and when we see somebody, just to educate them. Not trying to get in the face or anything, but just at least let them know. This is where it goes and what happens to this debris. But,
you're right. It can be a problem because it can either go into the vaults and out into the bay, or it goes into our stormwater ponds, and it can be a sediment issue.
All right, thank you.
And I've heard that from more than one person. By the way, this happens to be my brother-in-law. That's why Councilwoman Allison Patton came out very odd. He's not used to saying that. But I really do think education is an important part of that. And I think, that's certainly easier than enforcement. So I think it's a great idea, Rob.
And again, we appreciate you all being here. Yeah. Thank you.
Before I pass it back over to the mayor, I just wanted to take a quick second. In efforts to bring as much transparency straight to your fingertips, really. We recently rolled out, it's on the City of Pensacola.com, our website on the front page. If you scroll and look for capital improvements, You actually can click a link and it'll bring you to this interactive map. My phone it might take a second to upload on my phone, but it's an actual interactive map. You can actually pull up and you'll see dots, different colors, notating where the projects are, but you can actually hit that dot and it'll pull up a little window box and give you an update as to where we are with all the various projects, whether it's Bruce Beach, whether it's Bayview Park, whether it's hashtag and several others. And we update those on a bi-weekly or at least a monthly basis. So it's relatively updated, and so it's a neat feature. I really stole it from, I think it was City of Miami. I just was scrolling on the website, saw it, and I was like, that's something we could do here. So our GIS department keeps that up with all the project managers. That's a really neat. Get on cityofpensacola.com, look for capital improvements, click that button, and it pulls up a map, and you can see an update from the 50 plus, whatever it is, capital improvement projects that we've got going on in any given moment.
And in closing, I'll, on our side, and I'll let Councilwoman Patton close it out, but a couple other projects of note. You may have heard, obviously, the skate park. We are coming to May 2nd, I believe, in Casey's at 3 o'clock. 3 p.m. on May 2nd will be the official grand opening for the skate park there at the Hollis T. Williams Greenway. Bruce Beach Phase 1, which is right there next to Maritime Park. That will be completed in summer 2023, and then we're going to get going on Phase 2 to get the entire park completed. And last thing, I know it's been in the media as well, gave an update on this on Tuesday. The day use marina is pretty close to done. We're working through some of the details. Part of the grant funding required that those spaces be free, and that they required that those spaces be day use only, not overnight. So, that presents the same way for pay and overnight presents some challenges. Any version of this will present some challenges. So we're not in a rush. We'd rather take a couple more weeks and make sure that, we have something functional there, that we're not just opening these spaces and people leaving boats in the middle of the night. We don't know who owns them. We're wanting to make sure that we have all of our ducks in a row as far as that goes. But our delay is not really in construction. It's just making sure, and that's all hands on deck. Probably half the people in here are in the meeting about the day use marina, between law enforcement, between public works, the port, everyone about, how we are going to get that up and going. But I am excited about it because really, if you think about how much great waterfront we have, it's relatively unactivated. It's a lot of hardscape waterfront. If you want to take a boat as a visitor from the beach and you want to come visit our awesome downtown, where do you go? And you don't really have those opportunities. So not saying that that's a bad thing that we're working through this. I think at the end of the day, when we get this right, it'll be a great thing. And it really gives us that first interaction where we can have folks come in on a Saturday, come in from Orange Beach or Pensacola Beach and be able to enjoy everything that we have downtown. You have a last question? Yeah, come on.
Just quickly, does the skate park, does that have an official name or anything yet?
Yeah, we've been calling it Blake Doyle Skate Park, but understand on the city side, the entire is Hollis T. Williams Greenway is what's going to run from Maxwell Street under the interstate all the way through. So that it's the Blake Doyle Skate Park is one amenity from the city side of things. We look at the entire complex as the Hollis T. Williams Greenway.
Okay, because I know there was it was like 2 weeks ago, there was a kid that died, car crash, 11-year-old.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about memorializing his name on that skate park, and I wanted to know what the process would be for that, if that's even a thing that can be done.
Yeah, I actually talked with Councilman Jones on Monday about this, and I have not been able to speak to the child's parents, but everyone involved is at the same school that my daughter's at, and obviously that's been a difficult time for so many people involved in this issue, and so that conversation has come up, and the message I haven't been able to deliver to them personally, but is we will be happy to entertain anything that we can to do that, whether that's an amenity at the skate park. We are completely open-minded and just devastating. But it's something that I was telling someone else that asked me about it. It was like, this is when we talk about, all kids are our kids, and that's the way I feel. And everyone that lives in Pensacola So we're happy to entertain that, absolutely. And if there is someone in any intermediary of the family or any of that, I'd certainly want to respect their privacy and all of that. But we're happy to entertain absolutely anything that they'd be willing and open to doing. Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah.
My name is Michael Courtney. I live at the intersection of 8th and Jackson. And I hope I don't get real emotional because I just brought up the skate park. And we got a big problem in our neighborhood with speeding. Right before the election, I talked to Dan Hill and about it. Ask these guys. I'm known as the crazy old guy that stands out there screaming, "Slow down, stop sign." I live right at that intersection. People, instead of going through 9th Avenue, they cut through our neighborhood. Jackson Street, up right, up 8th, and they haul ass. It has been a big, big problem for a long time. I talked to Ann about it. She said, email this person here, the transportation. Emailed, well, you're going to have petitions. You're going to have studies. We're out of time. And no offense, I love the police department. And some of the worst offenders fly down there that are policemen. And I haven't yet screamed at one of those. I'm at the point now, I'm just beside myself. Well, my worst fear came through Wednesday. And Avery Stark is no longer with us, this beautiful 11-year-old child. And we don't have time for... Everybody in Old East Hill, stand up right now, please. Do y'all feel the same way as I do? Absolutely. We don't have time for petitions and stuff that never comes to fruition. I've already been through petitions in our neighborhoods, things, nothing ever happened. But we need some help, and quick. My worst fear has come true. We've lost this beautiful young boy. I had to go get his mom and take him down there, and I stayed with her at the hospital. And please, have your officers to slow down. I guarantee you could put one policeman, and I'll let you use my front porch, or Charlie across the street in the pink house. And I bet you can write enough tickets in a day to pay that officer's salary for the next month. Something's got to be done. I don't know what, but we don't have time anymore. That's the second child to get hit. Thank goodness Patton has graduated college now. He got hit right next door to me, crossing the street with his babysitter. Guys flew around the corner, hit him. The little kid flipped over the car. He survived. He's 24 now. But please, let's this not go on. We need help now. Thank you.
I understand. Thank you for sharing. What I would say to that is I do want to clarify that when we talk about studies, and everybody's up here has heard me say this in some version, which is when you come from private business and of course you move into city government, things not because of lack of care or lack of urgency. Things, when it's a city road and then a state road, things just move a little slower than the patience of when you were a private business owner, and things could move at the pace you'd like them to move. Just to clarify, it's not testing those things. It's not always just about does it meet a threshold? Because to your point, you're exactly right. We can have a couple things happen in a short period of time where that's test enough, right? We know that something needs to be done. But what we want is we ultimately want whatever solution that we put in place to be a solution. And so just as an example, in my first experience let's talk about stop signs, would have been the ones that were being installed, which started before me, but were actually installed along Langley. And the studies that have to go into that is really speaking to what you're saying, which is if we put a stop sign at the intersection closest to your house, how does that now impact the behavior of traffic? Right. Now, is it faster? Yeah, is it faster now to go this way that doesn't have a stop sign for 2 blocks, and the speed might increase. So of course, I can't speak to, the intersection exactly that you're, talking about, and I know our folks would be happy to catch up with you with your thoughts and ideas before this. But at the end of the day, I just want everyone to know that the testing isn't just to say, well, do we feel like doing this or not? Sometimes it's saying, hey, we'll put a stop sign in, we'll put a speed bump in, but we want to make sure that when we do, that there isn't other circumstances, other consequences unintended, that now we either have created the same problem somewhere else or a larger problem. So that is no rationalization for inactivity, and I don't think I would ever, I could speak for everyone in all of our public works departments, all of our traffic and transportation departments, and say that it is absolutely not out of a lack of care or a lack of effort. But that does add complexity. So happy to take a look at that, and as you said, as tough as that news has been on me, I couldn't imagine, what you've described. So, or being part of that family. So, anything that we can do, and certainly, please let everybody in Avery's family know anything that we can do. We will happily take a look at or do, whether it's memorializing or anything that we can do to help improve traffic safety, public safety here in Pensacola. All right. With that, as I said, I was trying to leave a few minutes at least, because I know some folks might be shy at the mic, but they might have a question about one or two things up here. But thank you so much for coming out and for your questions. And I never leave this event without bragging on everybody that works, our 850 employees. I'm still new here, and I'm closer to being on your side of the glass than I am on being on this side of the glass. And I'm amazed at how hard people work here to make this a great place to live. And, we're never perfect. I'm certainly never perfect, but we're coachable. We learn, we adapt, we take your feedback truly and go look into it. So I love this team up here, and I love how hard they work. I can promise you, as I said, this is not a lack of effort, not a lack of urgency. And let us know if there's if there's a code issue, let us know. Shoot us an email. We will certainly do our best, and we'll always maintain that way as long as I'm here. So thank you so much for the time, and I'll let Councilwoman Patton close it out.
So I would also thank everyone for coming. I was going to say up until the last 20 minutes that I thought, given the number of people I know in this audience, I was very surprised we had only that many questions. But you guys have shown me now that you're up to the task. So anyway, very glad that we were able to have this dialogue. I will also echo the mayor's comments about the city. Since I have gotten involved, and I am just 5 months on the other side of the glass, I have really seen the passion and the care that goes into the decisions that are made. If somebody has an issue, people don't ignore it. They care about it, and they really are trying to get to the right solution. Traffic safety is something that has been, a part of a lot of discussions in the neighborhoods around downtown District 6. And so, I think trying to carefully approach those things and figure out how to do it so we don't create other problems is the right way to do it. But to your point, Michael, it's something that we need to make sure we're addressing post-haste if we are truly, have issues with safety of individuals crossing streets and that sort of thing. So it's definitely it's that balance again, but I think looking at all those issues for all the neighborhoods is definitely a priority of mine. And I will work with the city on it. But I would just thank the mayor for having this town hall and thank all of the city staff for coming and participating in it. I really think these are very important events for our district, and making sure that we have the opportunity to get the information from you that we need to do the right things for the community. The mayor and I'm happy to say, have a lot of the same, I think, vision and ideas for Pensacola and for our district, and so it's been great, working with him these 5 months, and I look forward to doing this again next year. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, guys.